If anybody's ever going to go to Vegas, go to Mayfair Supper Club in Bellagio. I have a video of these two people on roller skates on a table about as big as this rug. And he puts a rope around his neck and around her neck and is doing roller skates. And she's like in the air.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. We don't go to any like other shows, mainly because it kind of like interferes into our schedule. Like
It messes up your dinner and wine.
It does.
And sleep.
It does.
And sleep.
And
It
sleep.
throws
Yeah.
you up
Well, yeah.
It's kind of adverse. You'd think a financial planner should be telling people, Vegas is probably not a good play.
Financial planner to send me to Vegas.
I don't think compliance will let me talk about Vegas. That's not gonna happen.
Leaning closer. This is your time. Hit record on. Your crooked lives. What's your story? Hey, say the words out loud. Mike and Scott gonna crack that crowd. What's your story? Hey, turn it up, let's go. Every voice, every scar, every road. What's your story? Mike and Scott. Let's talk.
Oh my goodness, another episode. What's your story? Mike Lynch from my man Scott Lees coming in from Austin, Texas. We are in Scottsdale, Arizona. I'm excited about today because it's when I get to interview someone I've known for 20 plus years in business or otherwise, and you and I have known each other for about that long, right?
Yeah,
So to be able to have somebody come in and talk about life, their story, and business. John Moriarty coming in from St. Louis, Missouri. We're getting more people coming to us.
I like that.
It's not just Arizona
I'm not the
people.
only one who traveled today.
I know. I
like
love that. So we'll talk about that, why he's here. E3 Consultants, author. We'll get a chance to plug at the very end all the things he's doing. But John, thanks for coming on the show. Thanks for coming all the way from St. Louis.
Mike,
Missouri.
Scott, I appreciate you guys having me here. I'm very excited.
But you're fitting us in, by the way. We're not fitting you in. You came in for what reasons?
Business group, a retreat.
Yep.
Arizona.
Okay.
No, if you're from St. Louis and it's April, you want to go somewhere else.
But you
Phoenix
carved
and
out an hour
Scottsdale.
of your time to come see us.
Absolutely, yes.
And that says a lot. I appreciate that. So when you give your kind of elevator pitch of who you are, what's your story?
I look at myself as a passionate entrepreneur that was born and raised in St. Louis and haven't left. I got a great family. I got two great kids that are now grown adults, which is
Crazy.
scary
It is way
and awesome at the same time. But I would say I'm that guy that loves people, but I don't really like being around people a lot, which is a little weird.
How's that work?
That actually resonates.
Yeah.
That's how I feel.
Yeah.
Well, I want to hear this. Tell me how that
So
works.
I always think of myself as an introvert, and I work really hard to be extroverted, but I really feel like it's an energy thing, which you and I have talked about a lot.
big time.
People that give me energy, I love being around them, and I can spend a week with them and not be tired. But you go in a room of people you don't know, and you just get a vibe, and I'm like, nah, I'm just going to go stand in a corner over here and just observe, just kind of wait and see who comes up and talks. And then once you start to get comfortable, you put it out there. My wife and I are like this. We can go somewhere. We can go to a dinner. We go out a lot to eat. And we grew up, we didn't have a lot as, as kids and part of our family. So that's the one thing we like to do is we'll go out to nice restaurants. We'll go sit, two of us, and we'll just eat. And literally it's like, we're alone. There's nobody in the restaurant. Maybe we'll do a little people watching, but we are comfortable in that space, just her and I. But like with friends, people that give great energy, we can have a blast. It's awesome. Spend your night laughing and you go home when you got pains in your stomach. Or we can be like, this isn't the vibe we want. And we leave early and go home, watch some TV, maybe get wine. And so I don't know what it is, but that's me. I'll have some people be like, yeah, man, you're like okay at being by yourself. I'm like, yeah, I like me.
And my wife still likes me.
Yeah, my wife still likes me.
She still
So
likes
I got two fans right now. Me and my wife. My two kids, I think, like me.
Do you feel like when you run events, meetings, or I don't know, a couple day event or whatever, you're giving, and the only way to recharge your battery is to retreat in silence, or can you recharge your battery around others?
So that's a great question. What I will say is I am way more cognizant of events that I want to be given the energy. And other times I will make sure I delegate or surround myself with other people that are good at that. And they just, to me, it's about balance. And I find that I make sure I put myself in positions where if the expectation is that I got to be on, then okay, can I control my environment or I can control who we're going to be with? And if I know that in advance, then I'll be like, hey, I got other business partners. Why don't you guys talk, or other people that do a really good job, and I can just kind of sit back, maybe orchestrate. I like doing that. I don't need to be the center of attention. And in business, I kind of feel like if you're okay with not being the guy, but yet you are the guy because you either write the checks or you make the decisions, but you put people out front, give them success, give them experience, let them experience it. And if it doesn't work or it's going the wrong direction, you can kind of come in and put everything back on track. But if they're doing great, then you let them go. I love seeing people achieve, have success, and you kind of put them in a place where they can have that success, but they have to do it. So in our business, being mainly financial, you got to talk to people about intangible things that most people don't understand, like money, right? So you got to teach people to be able to do that. You got to set them up for success. And then sometimes it goes well, sometimes it doesn't. But I don't need to be the guy that explains things. The problem is if I'm in a room and I'm sitting around and people are asking questions and talking, innately I want to do the talking. So I almost have to force myself not to be in meetings so that other team members can kind of do what I know they can do. It's just my innate ability is if I feel really confident about something, then I'm just going to go with it.
I can go do those kind of events and be on like that and answer all those questions. And then I have to retreat.
Yeah.
I have to go back to my cave, or my solitude or wherever.
It's probably that NorCal.
Recharge my battery.
That's where you're one. That's one. You're one with the ocean, or you're. See, like for me, golf is my oasis. So I have to get out and play, and just sometimes I'll go golf just by myself. I'll leave the office early. Go to the club.
Do you find that you play better when you play by yourself? It's not because I'm cheating either.
Yeah, I would say I've gotten to a place. I love golf. I can play a lot of golf. I don't have to play golf now to feel like it's like, I need to relax. But I do love it. Playing by myself and then playing with other people. Number one, I like to play by myself because it's faster.
Yeah.
I like to play fast. I'm that person where it's like, well, if I can just go out and play in 2 hours and I can say I got a round of golf in, I love that because it's a de-stress type thing. But if I can also go out and I'm on a trip and we're going to play a couple rounds of golf and it's business stuff and I know it's going to take 4.5 hours, I just have to accept it. And I'm okay with that because I'm not going home. I'm not like I don't have other things to do. And that is probably one of my biggest challenges is always trying to balance time, try to be everywhere or everything to everyone. And then eventually just got to say, yeah, no, I can't. If I go golfing on a weekend and I know my wife is waiting for me at home and we're going to go do something, like I'm not sticking around. I'm not having a drink. I'm not going to be there. Nope. I'm like, I play golf. I'm out. And all my buddies or anybody I play, they know that, right? They know as soon as
that's the deal.
I'm done, I'm literally going to walk and we'll go right to my car. And they're like, see, and they don't even ask. They don't even ask me, do you want to stay for a beer? Or you want to get, they already know. I'm like, I'm out. I got other stuff to do, but I loved it. So I feel like the retreating part, for me, if I can control my environment, I don't have to retreat because I kind of managed it. But if it is a situation where it's a conference or something and you got to meet people and people are coming up to you and you're talking and they don't get the signal, you're having a conversation and it's like
missing the social.
Right. Yeah. Like it's like, I'm done talking to you, right? But they don't know that. But you're like, I've given you 3 signals that I'm done, but you don't. And then I do it's like, I'll take a phone call. Or I'll do one of those like, oh, yeah, I'm coming. And then like, hey, man, I'll be right back. And then I'll just, a little Irish exit.
Oh, yeah, we all know that. We do. I love that Irish exit.
Yes.
I love that move. Well, I have to ask you, so I have a friend of mine in town tomorrow that's going to want me to do this facilitation for this theme called Enoughness, IEU.
Right.
I got to ask you that question because I actually have brought this up today with some guests that are coaches and asked them about that. What does that mean to you? Enoughness, is it time, money, is it number? Because you're going to hear about this tomorrow.
Yep.
So what is it to you?
So if you would have asked me that question 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, it would have been directly tied to financial success, the business, where I see things going and what I'm trying to accomplish and what's going to be written on your tombstone. Checking all the boxes, right? Like great entrepreneur, like built company, all this stuff. Today, it's real simple. It's family. My wife and I have talked about this now that my son is almost ready to graduate college. My daughter is a freshman in college, and now they're like adults. They're getting ready to like go into the world and be exposed to everything that we're now dealing with. And like, to me, all that stuff that used to matter, it doesn't matter anymore. This unit, our family is for humans. So it's like protect that family and nurture them, like give them the skill set. It's not I'm going to protect you. I'm going to helicopter you. I'm not going to let you fail. I'm not going to let you go off and do your own thing. Just the opposite. No, I want you to do that, but the safe place is back here. I don't want you to put yourself in a situation where you're so stressed out about something and it harms you, or you take shit from somebody because you think, well, I have to. And it's like, no, we built something so that you don't have to do that. But it also doesn't mean you don't have to work hard. It doesn't mean that you don't go out and give your effort. So that's been something the last couple of years. There's a couple of reasons it's kind of happened, but the main thing is I just realized I was very selfish. When my wife and I got married and we had the conversation about, I'm going to go create this business and I'm going to support the family and you're going to raise the kids and we're going to do this together and it's going to be a team. And then basically as our kids are growing up, there was one time where I think we were in Punamita or something, just the two of us, and we're sitting on the beach and we were talking about kids growing up and everything. And she like looks at me and she says, yeah, like for about 10 years, I was alone. I was raising the kids. You were there, but I never had adult conversations. So like she admits to me for a decade, raising our kids, which are amazing humans, and she was literally alone. It wasn't that I wasn't there, but my focus there wasn't that connection. And so when I heard that, like, first off, I was like, wow, that hurt.
Yeah, that hurts.
Not that she meant to hurt me, but I hurt because
it's
it's amazing that you were able to do that. You hung in there. We're on the other side of it. But also at the same time, too, that hurts because it's like, well, that wasn't the intention, but because I was selfish, because I was focused on, well, what I got to achieve. And if I achieve this, everybody wins. Yeah, great. But what if it would have went too far and our relationship would have been strained? Or, I mean, how many families are divorced and kids? So it's like, you start to hear that and think about that and say, okay, it didn't happen. But then how do you make sure that you right those wrongs, or you make sure that, okay, now that I know that, I have information that I didn't have before, and I'm going to operate differently from that point. So I think it was like moving in that direction. And as my kids got older, they experienced things. I mean, my son's playing Division III lacrosse, and it's been an amazing experience. But he's basically been playing behind a kid who's an honorable mention All-American, and who, by the way, is one of his roommates and one of his best friends, which is my son's superpower, that he basically is this kid that can walk into any room and have the energy. If my son's with me and we go somewhere, I'm just, Harry, go meet. And he goes up to adults, introduces himself. Like, that's the kind of stuff that I love, seeing him be an adult and do stuff that I'm like, I don't want to do that. I don't need to do it. Like, I'll put him out there. My daughter's she's more of the math nerd. She wants to be an actuary. So she's more like me on the financial side, but her personality they're both very similar between my wife and I, but all the stuff that I love about me but drives my wife nuts, they both have in spades. So sometimes my wife's like, well, there's your daughter doing what you do to me all the time. I just get it from a female now. So, that's the kind of stuff that, like, now that I see that full cycle, my story is always going to be written as what that family dynamic is, like where that goes. So I'm a big player in that story, but it's not my story, right?
How do you try to distill that concept, if at all, of enoughness into your employees and your company?
That's a great question, Scott. I would say that is probably done more by example. Some of the stuff that Mike's going to talk about tomorrow in the pre-work he gave us, one of the things that I will admit is I look at myself as a really horrible mentor. And
even now?
Yeah. And I've had great mentors, and I've also had people that fell short, but that's okay because I recognize it, right? And human beings, nobody's perfect. But I'm that person that I'm a great mentor for you if you're that 20%er that wants to be a 5%er or a 1%er, because you can match my drive. You will do things that I won't have to ask you. And also you're thinking of always what's next? What else can I do? I achieved this. Okay, what's next? So that's always been my drive. I can't sit still. The person that just wants to be coached or is just content or just happy with what they're experiencing, I had to tell myself, you know what? Not everybody has the same drive. Not everybody has the same goals or objectives. And also, too, they don't have to succeed at the same level to be an addition to the company.
Yeah.
Look at it very simply. People can be one of four things. They can add, they can multiply, they can subtract or divide. And if they're adding, that's great, right? That's singles and doubles in baseball, right? Very seldom are you going to find somebody that helps you multiply your business. Now, when you do, that's where you want to put as much energy and drive and push them. And those are the kind of people I love to motivate. But I also feel like if I have to sit there, and it could be a generational thing, but if I have to be the one that is constantly coming up to you and giving you a, hey, buddy, that's a good job, or job well done, or great job on that presentation, or anything. Like, if I notice something where you pushed yourself and you did really well and you felt that, and you're somebody that has been looking for that opportunity and now you have it, I'm going to totally call that out. But I'm not going to do that on a daily basis, because sometimes the daily basis is just about the grind.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
You don't need an attaboy for every single thing.
Yeah,
every
90% of the time, whatever you do that you're really good at, the stuff you're doing really sucks. And nothing proves that point better than when my son did an internship with us last year. And he came home, and it was his first week or whatever, and maybe it was his first day. He came home, and my wife said, how was it?
How's your work day?
She's like, Mom, it's so boring. So boring. Like, financial stuff, the spreadsheets, like the calls with clients, or like sitting in a meeting with clients, like, oh, it's great.
He likes that part, probably.
Yeah. But he's like, oh my God, sitting there and like we're going over notes and reviewing, and then I had to put the data in Salesforce, and I did that for
every salesperson's worst nightmare.
And I had to put that in for most of the day. So I was like, good. Guess what? That's going to be your life for 90% of the time, no matter where you go, no matter what you do. Like, it's boring. It's a grind. The stuff that you do, that's the daily stuff that most people say is boring, like, that's what makes you great, because you look at that and say, it's going to get me one step closer to the stuff I want to know. Because if you don't do that, you're never going to be able to experience the highs and the greatness, because you didn't start where everybody else, like the people that found companies and took it all the way, they started as founder at /employee number one. So they know all the stuff that sucks. That's why they have employees. They're like, I got to go do this other stuff. You got to do this. But guess what? Better you do this. I'm going to take you and I'm going to move you in this spot. We're going to get somebody else, and they're going to do the sucky stuff. Yeah. Everybody's got to do the sucky stuff.
Too many people just want to skip all that part.
No,
it's like,
they want the sexy.
I used to say,
sexy.
My job right now is to get so good at this shit, whatever that shit was, that I never have to do it
Leverage
again.
it.
That I never have to do it again. I don't get to skip it.
Yep.
I have to get so good at it that I don't have to do it anymore.
It's like, embrace the suck.
Yeah.
Like, embrace it, love it. Not forever. You love it because you know it's not going to be here forever. Versus this, it's like, you go in I hate my job. Well, why do you hate your job? Did you just take the job because it's a paycheck? Well, yeah. If you just took a job because it's a paycheck, it's going to suck.
It's a job, just over broke, man.
Yeah.
It's not a passion.
Yeah, so that's where with my kids, it's the passion.
Job, man. That's what your kid does in high school. You'll get a job at Jimmy John's. That's a job. You're just over broke, but you're making money. If you're going to go out and do your career, you shouldn't have just a job. But if you're going to come work in your firm, it's not a job. This is what you're going to be doing. This is your passion. You're going to somewhat love it.
There's a difference in the mindset that's still in you when you're little, though. I mean, I remember my dad used to say they call it a job for a reason. His mindset was just, it sucks, period. It's always going to suck.
And I do think that generational thing, so like,
he's 80 years old, right?
Right. You get, the whole idea was you go do something, whether you love it or not, it's security. Yeah. It's a paycheck. You can take care of your family. And probably at that time, that job, you probably made enough money where you could take care of your family.
Yeah.
Or if my dad was a policeman, so he had his policeman job and he did secondary. So you would do things to like make ends meet. But the whole idea was, well, I do that for 30 years. And depending on most companies, I get a pension, I got savings, I get Social Security. I'm retired. Yeah. I'm good. I did what I was supposed to do. They told me the American dream was you make enough money, get your house, have your 3-4 kids or whatever. 30 years, boom, you're done, you retire, and that's the gig. But that's not the gig. So now it's like, well, most people don't stay at a job 30 months. More than 30 years.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's the other thing too, is this mindset of, well, if a job at a certain place is just a stepping stone to the next job, well then how is this job ever going to actually move you forward if you're going into it thinking, well, I'm not going to be here for that long. So how does the company benefit? How do the people that, I mean, you maybe meet some people that you like and you build that little camaraderie in the office, and maybe that turns into some friends outside the office, maybe. But most people, if they don't put anything into it, you're not going to get much out of it. And then you're just going to be bouncing around. And luckily, a lot of guys that I grew up with, played baseball with, they're all in sales or run their own businesses. And it's very different when we're together and talking, because you're talking about things that everybody understands, different industries, different level, but the bottom line is the same. The grind, you love it. Like and so to me, it's like, if I love that and I can teach my kids that, then we're good. Like whatever they're going to do, but they have to understand, yes, it's going to suck, but that's normal. The suck is normal. You think it's abnormal. Like, I should love what I do. It's like, no.
I didn't know Harry did an internship there.
Yeah.
I did not.
Only for a summer. It was fun.
So when I first started going to St. Louis, I stayed with his family. I remember one time he had to jump in the shower, jump on a call, and Ellen was out the door and said, hey, can you feed Kate? Because it's like 3 or whatever. Do the math. I mean, how old is she now? 18?
18, yep.
So, I mean, I'm over there in the house, and it's family, and this is the way it was.
She'll take food from anybody, so yeah.
But John was always good. He's a wine guy. That's another passion outside of his golf and wine.
I do enjoy some wine.
And he knows
the
stuff.
spirits.
He's the guy. I know his partners will sometimes give him grief because him and Eli like to travel. Vegas a lot and other favorite places. And he'll be the guy with his app, taking a picture of the bottle, trying to see what it is. Am I right? What's the app that you go on?
Vivino.
See?
I use Vivino, and it helps when you're at a restaurant with a 40-page wine. And of course, every good restaurant, if they're smart, they overprice the California cabs, because that's what everybody knows and orders. So my goal is to skip those, go to the stuff that we like, but also, there's going to be a smaller list, and there's always one or two that you can pick out. It's a good price. And then whoever's handling their wine, if the som comes over or whatever, and you pick something, they're like, ooh, go, like, ooh, you found our little nuggets that we've been hiding in there. So I like that.
Yeah.
And also, about 2/3 of the time, though, I'll also pick something that isn't, we just can't find it. We just ran out. So that's always fun. I have to then pick a backup.
You've invested in wine too, right? You'll buy a bottle.
I call it investing. Okay. My wife calls it over consuming. Yeah, I've bought a lot of wine. I look at it as an investment. Deal. It is a good, yes. It's a.
Do you invest in wineries?
No, I haven't. So I started doing like Bordeaux futures and stuff a while ago, and I don't do it as much anymore, because mainly it's like all the work you just have to do to make sure you can maintain. Like, I've got an off-site place that I store some wine, and because I mean, if you're going to own wine that you want to appreciate and value, like, you got to keep it well preserved. So you got to pay somebody to do that, because in St. Louis, we have basements. So I don't know if you guys
did know that.
Yeah.
Thank
you.
So
that's a big thing in basements. And most of those basements are homes. They're century homes, like 120 years old. So limestone foundations. So it keeps it pretty cool, like, 50 degrees. I don't have like a real fancy cellar, but I keep a lot of wine that we're going to drink, and it's good. But if it's something I want as an investment, I'll keep it kind of offsite. But it was a passion. It started when we went to Half Moon Bay, went to the Ritz-Carlton. They had a wine event.
Great area.
On the lawn out there. And this was like amazing. It was before my wife got pregnant with our son. So we joined the wine club. And then right as the wine was starting to arrive, we found out she was pregnant, and she literally was like, you can't have any of that. You have to wait until
one of those.
One of those.
So that started if I can't have any of this, I should buy more wine and
be ready.
I'll be ready to go. And there you have it. That's how I got into wine collecting.
I love it. So we had Sharon Lecter in here today. 29 years ago, she wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Okay.
With Robert Kiyosaki. And she talked a lot about money and beliefs. She's a speaker. She lives here in town. And she was giving us her breakdown of what she sees with beliefs about money, whether it's an asset or a liability. So given that backdrop, you have a very certain unique angle with money too. You and I put our notes together many years ago on neurolinguistics.
Yes.
And I would say, well, how come people don't know this in your industry? And you're like, Mike, I'm telling you, neuroeconomics is not really a thing yet, but I'm all in on it. Like, if I'm going to sit down with a couple, I'm going to explain pain, pleasure, risk aversion, and use these techniques, for lack of better words, to create a different conversation. So here we are, 2026, different economy. What do you see is wrong when you're sitting down with a couple or a young person? What's different about the business now, money-wise and belief-wise, versus when you started the practice?
Well, so the interesting thing kind of post-COVID is that the world, I feel like people have access to more information because they're more comfortable doing Zooms and meeting people that they may never meet face-to-face. Like we have clients now that have not met face-to-face, but we meet all the time. And so our business was nothing like that pre-COVID. But what that does is it kind of opens people up to more access to information, which means they have an easier opportunity to get challenged in their thinking and then kind of get in their own way when they're making decisions, because it's like, well, I just have to get all the information before I make a decision. So for us and our firm and clients we work with, we feel like communication, education, building trust, building confidence, that is the most important thing from a financial advisor, advocate perspective, and also understanding what their relationship is with money, like how you grew up with money. You have money in different accounts. Okay, well, what's the purpose of that money? Like just asking a simple question, like you have money in this account. What's the purpose of it? And they tell you. And sometimes it's like, what do you mean purpose? It's like, all right, you put it there for a reason. What's the reason? And then they have to think about it. And sometimes it's like, well, to retire. And it's like, okay, well, what's your definition of retirement? Everybody's definition is different. So it's, if it has a purpose and it has a definition, then okay, now you get to align strategies. But for people to think, oh, well, retirement means the same thing to everybody, no. And then also too, like I know more people, and I've kind of transitioned over probably the last decade to working more with entrepreneurs and business owners, because I love the fact that most business owners, they don't really ever look at retiring. They just look at maybe slowing down, or I'm going to go from a owner operator to maybe a professional investor. Or they're not wanting to be that person that's going to sit on the front porch in a rocking chair and drink the coffee, because they know if they just sit still, that's just a slow path.
Whittle away. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
So to me, that's, I think, understanding the mental aspect, or just for a lot of people, I think coming out of COVID and learning, oh, well, some bad stuff can happen that I don't have any control over. And it really upends my entire life and how I interact with people and my family. And if you lost loved ones and friends, and all of a sudden you're like, I may reevaluate how I save money, what I do with it. I might want to go on trips because I'm healthy now.
Yeah.
I want to like spend time with people. So it's a different dynamic, but I think to me, it's way more interactive. Instead of looking at assets on a balance sheet and looking at a number and thinking, okay, I want that number to get to this number. It's really more like, okay, well, if that number's that, what can I do with that number? So it's really more driving that purpose, which I find way more enjoyable in the business. And with working with entrepreneurs, I get more energy out of talking to an entrepreneur about what their business is, even if I don't even understand what they make or what they do.
Oh, you feel their passion probably a little bit, right?
Yeah. So the energy from having those conversations, right?
Yeah.
So if I was in a room with entrepreneurs, there's a higher probability that I might engage, but at least ask. But then even with entrepreneurs, sometimes you could have a person that has a great business, but sorry, they're an asshole, and I don't need to talk to them. No. I don't care what you've done. I have too little time to spend it letting you fill the room with air, so I'll pass.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned earlier about beliefs about money coming from things like childhood. Interesting, because I do know a lot of your backstory, because you grew up like a straight middle class. We're talking about police officer.
I'd say lower middle class. Yeah.
So you came from that.
Yep.
Was there ever a moment in time as a child, or it could be good or bad, where you're just like, that's never going to happen to me, or I'm going to change that? Was there a moment when you couldn't afford something, or something that took place where you said, this is going to change for my generation and then my kids' generation?
Yeah, all my entire existence under my parents' roof, it was realizing what other people had, what I didn't have, but not in a jealous way, not in an envy way. Just more of a, okay, when I have the capability to do whatever, that was like a drive. And it wasn't that I want stuff. It was more about experiences, like going to dinner, travel, having any kind of soda I want in my fridge. Just being able to say, like, if I want Coke, It's in there. And that's a simple thing. But growing up, we got one kind of soda, and it was maybe we didn't get it that week. Maybe it was the following week. Okay. Or, I mean, it's just the little stuff that you think about.
Yep.
But to me, it was more of a drive to be able to say, okay, if I can afford those things, I can get a nicer car, we can travel, we can do all that stuff. I always felt like it was the little stuff that drove you. And then once you got past it, once that didn't drive you anymore, then it was like, okay, now what's next?
Yeah.
Like, and then can you do that for your family, or can you do that for your employee? Like, can you make their lives better or do whatever, and figure out what drives them? Sometimes when people would say, oh, I wish I could do this or do that. Oh, well, let's figure out how do we do that?
I remember, this is probably before COVID, 2018 or 19. I think it was in 2019. So, man, John travels a lot, man. He posts on these trips he goes on and whatever. But I knew your story. And I asked this person, I said, do you know his story? Do you know why he likes to travel? Do you know his story? And they're like, no, I don't. I said, well, you should get to know that. I said, there's a reason why someone likes to travel. There's a reason why he likes to go to nice dinners. So maybe you should find out what that is. It's true, because you see people post things. And I know people give you grief, your friends. Man, why are you always posting me in these restaurants or whatever? I'm like, but he's doing it for fun. He's creating memories for his family. Facebook's going to remind him in 20 years where he was, just like I do. Just like I did. I'm not on as much as I used to be, but I like it and having those elements. But to know that you came from that and now you're creating something completely different, and that paradigm shift, but getting other people to understand it, because now you're coaching them. You're coaching a couple. You're coaching that cop, saying, buddy, I know exactly what you're going through, and I can help change the history of your family because I've done it.
So it's funny you mentioned that, because yes, people do like to give me a lot of grief. I'm well aware of it, and it still doesn't stop me.
No.
But the cool thing is when somebody will reach out to me and be like, hey, I'm going to Vegas and I got an important business dinner. I got my crew and we're going out and we're bringing one of our top clients with us. I know, and my wife and I go to Vegas a ton. We've been there like 60 plus times. We haven't paid for a room. Like, everything's comp because of how we travel and we learn the system. But the restaurants we go to and everything, when somebody asks me that, where should I take them? Like, what should we do? I love it. I geek out and I say, here's three places. Yeah, here's 3 places. Like, go to this place, ask for this person. If you get a reservation on a Wednesday night, it'd be better. Sit in the back. You guys can talk business, but and to me, that's why I do it, because other people who see that, oh, it's not about, I'm not bragging.
No, I know that.
But I like to go to nice restaurants, but I also like to go to places where if I go there enough and the people that work there recognize you and they appreciate you because you take care of them when you're there, I call that social capital.
Yep.
And I say, if one thing I learned in the past 30 years being in business is if you build social capital in a community or in places that you go, that is worth its weight in gold.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden you start to realize, oh, if I'm a nice person and I'm genuine, I'm authentic in why I'm doing things, but I also like share that with other people will say, what do you need? What can I do? And then my biggest thing is, how do I leverage that to help other people? Yeah, it benefits me, but it can benefit you too. Mm-hmm. And I love doing that. Like, and me and my wife, if we ever get that opportunity, because somebody will ask, we're like, absolutely, like, what do you want to know? And so that, I do get a kick out of that.
When did the first Vegas thing come in? I never asked that question. I know you guys have.
What was the thing? It was probably like a conference.
What makes somebody a Vegas person?
So my wife loves to go to Vegas because we get away. Most people don't go to Vegas a lot. So it's kind of a place most people don't go. It's a direct flight from St. Louis, which these days, get a lot of direct flights. So points and everything we never pay because we go Southwest. And then we use MGM properties and we build up points. We use their credit card. So we've built up a lot of basically credit, and we go, and the restaurants out there are money.
Yeah,
like you're talking some of the best sommeliers, some of the best chefs. So we can eat amazingly 4 nights in a row. We can go to a different style restaurant. We can go to different places, but all on the Strip. So super close by. And we like to gamble a little bit. We like to maybe stay up, drink a little bit. We like to sleep in. We like to be pampered, which they love to do in Vegas. And guess what? When you leave there, the most amazing thing they do is they send you an email saying, when are you coming back? And here's when we want to come back. I mean, I'm sorry. It's pretty simple. Like, you go there, you spend money, and then they're like, hey, please come back and we'll give you more money to spend, because we want you to come back. And so we went out there, and the first time we got rooms comped, and we had the rooms comped. We had money to gamble a little bit. We had some food credit, and it cost. You come home and you're like, yeah, we lost money gambling, but that's entertainment.
watch.
Yeah, it's going to happen. But like all the other stuff, you're like, that didn't cost a lot of money. So it's like that misnomer. Everybody thinks like, oh, Vegas like super expensive or it's crazy. Well, yeah, but we don't go to nightclubs and all the other.
What's your favorite show at the Sphere that you've seen?
See, that's the thing. So I've been to the Sphere, but we don't go to Vegas for shows. My wife and I, the best show that we saw, we did Mayfair Supper Club at Bellagio, which is like amazing. If anybody's ever going to go to Vegas, go to Mayfair Supper Club in Bellagio. It's like a show at dinner on a stage. It's a vaudeville cabaret. It's on my phone. I have a video of these two people on roller skates on a table about as big as this rug. And he basically puts a rope around his neck and around her neck and is doing roller skates. And she's like in the air.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Like that's so I would say that kind of show, but we don't go to any like other shows mainly because it kind of like interferes into our schedule. Like
I'll mess up your dinner and wine.
It does.
And sleep.
It does.
And sleep.
And sleep. Yeah. Well, yeah. And then gambling late at night, and then you win, so you stay up later, and then all of a sudden you're like, you get back to the room the next morning, you're like, okay, I think we won money. Did we keep the money we won, or did we? But we like Vegas. It's a great spot. I think it's like a hidden gem for most people that are like, oh no, there's.
That's the one city that I've been to, other outside of California cities where I grew up, in the country that I've been to the most. And it's not been as later in life. I mean, I was obviously college. It started at UC San Diego as a frat guy. We'd be the pledges driving up the Big Bros from San Diego to Vegas, doing the $29 a night at the Hooters Hotel or whatever. But I know what you mean. Monica and I would, for a year, before kids, we'd fly out there on Christmas night. You'd land and there was no one in the taxi line. And we're like, this is going to be amazing. No one's here. We can eat, drink, sleep, nap, and go do whatever the hell we want to do. And when kids happened, we started doing it less, but we still enjoy it. Go out there to Vegas, and we do it the right way, like you're talking about. It's kind of adverse. You think a financial planner should be telling people, Vegas is probably not a good play.
Financial planner to send me the video or.
But he does it smartly. That's going to be the hook of his video. I can already
right.
see it. What is John Moriarty from me will tell you why it's a smart move.
I don't think compliance will let me talk about Vegas. That's not gonna happen.
I love it. All right, so we wrap up with a couple rapid fire questions, and then we're going to let you promote whatever you want. So I love asking the question: favorite book or books, influences. It could be finance or not. Something in your life that you read that inspired you?
So I always like to say the E-Myth by Michael Gerber, but I will also say a book that my wife and I listened to on audio was Matthew McConaughey's Green Lights.
Nice.
So that was pretty, and since he narrates it, that was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's these days getting through a non-finance book. It's kind of tough for me, but that was pretty good. So I'd say those two.
What about quote you live by?
It's only money. You can always make more.
That's a good one.
That's a good one.
That's a good one.
How high up the rankings is Busch Stadium of all the baseball parks that you've been to? It's one of the few that I've never been to.
I mean,
how high
Scott,
up the rankings?
It's pretty high up there only because obviously it's home park and stuff. But I will say Fenway Park, Wrigley, Fenway. And it's hard for a guy who's a St. Louis guy to say Wrigley.
Yeah.
But Wrigley and Fenway, the nostalgia there, like you just
Can't beat that.
just feel it when you walk in. With St. Louis, it's like their next iteration. I loved the stadium when it was like AstroTurf and it was 140 degrees on the field in the summer, but the players didn't like that because their cleats were melting. But the current view, they did a really good job of like old school ballpark, open view of the kind of city and stuff, and it's got a really good feel to it. So yeah, I'm a little biased there.
Top 10?
Oh, top 3.
Oh, wow.
I'd say Fenway, Wrigley, and Busch Stadium are probably up there.
All right.
Yeah.
That's a good one. All right. Any financial advice as you close out? Anything for our listeners? You got one thing that you would advise people out there, since you are an expert in doing this 25 years, what would you say?
Talk to your family about money,
Yeah.
about financial concepts, about your reality with money, where you are. Never be afraid to tell your kids, no, we can't do something because we don't have the money to do that.
Yeah.
Or, hey, this is the way we live. This is what we're looking to do. I feel like people that I've met who had that like real experience with their parents and explained to them, like, no, money doesn't grow on trees. they actually learn the value of money as a tool, right? Like that, it's just a tool that helps you get to where you're going, but it's also something that you have to be realistic about. And if you can just be open and honest with your partner or your business partner, your life partner, your kids, your family members, I think that's the most important thing.
Good stuff. All right. How do we find you? Websites? What do you got?
So website, e3wealth.com. Me and a couple partners just wrote a book called The Entrepreneur Playbook, available on Amazon, and audiobook. It'll be out probably in the next couple weeks. So those are probably our two easiest ways.
Awesome. John, thanks for coming on, man.
Guys, thank you very much. This was amazing.
Forum.
Yes.
We're not sitting in a seminar room. We'll do that
this is great. I love this forum way better.
This is great. All right, we're setting up another episode. My man, Scott Leese, Mike Lindstrom, another one in the can. What's your story? Hey, everyone. Mike Lindstrom here. Thanks for tuning in to What's Your Story with Mike and Scott. Make sure to hit the subscribe button for new episodes every Tuesday morning and check out a few of our previous episodes below. We'll see you next time.